welcome to today's session of the Natural Birth Summit. Today's talk is about making informed decisions in labour and also processing birth events that do not go entirely as planned. We are fortunate today to have with us Leanne Marsden. Hi, Leanne.
Are you okay?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Leanne operates the business called Birthhood, and she offers complete and evidence-based hypnobirthing birth preparation programs. And she's also worked as a doula. And she does a very interesting and innovative processing your birth program, which is called Birth Rewind, which we'll come back to. Leanne has been working passionately supporting pregnant women for many years, and it's great to have you on, Leanne. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Okay, we're going to dive right in. So help us get started here by talking about what does it mean to make informed decisions, and why is that important?
I think I'll start firstly by I kind of want to get across to kind of most people that I work with or support or share resources with that choice is always yours as the person giving birth. You don't always need to be informed to make a decision. And unfortunately, that can actually can backfire on you because informed choice means that you can know the information to decipher what is best for you when you go into that birth. Because unfortunately, our healthcare providers don't always give us full evidence-based information for us to make those choices, which means it can lead to outcomes that you don't want when you make a decision that you don't know whether it's relevant or not to you. Because staffing in many hospitals or birth centres and places like that mean that decisions need to be quicker because it helps the provider out further, but actually they're not always best for you and your baby and your birth. I know instinctively for me, I wanted to make sure I was in control of my birth. So it was my job to be as informed as possible about every option available to me, which then meant that I could keep control and keep calm. And it meant that I knew my rights. And I think as a parent going into labour, a lot of people, I hear a lot, I wasn't allowed to do this, or I couldn't have that, I wasn't allowed to get in the water, I couldn't birth at the birth centre, when actually you have the right to have those experiences. And a lot of the time it's policies that stop you having those options, when in fact those policies aren't evidence-based, or it's just a policy looked. And therefore, are you then getting individualised care and support? If it's a policy that's just generalised for the whole population and it's not catered for you, and therefore what decisions can you actually make when you're not being given individualised care? Because actually you could have two people that are both put down a path because of something like BMI, for example, when you look
which is a body mass index.
Yeah, which is when it's used in pregnancy a lot, and actually most of the time shouldn't be used.
We all know it shouldn't be used, but it is.
It is. And the amount of clients that don't get that BMI measured till they're way later in pregnancy, 24 weeks plus, and yes, your BMI is going to have changed by the time you get to that point. And it is unfortunately something that can change. It shouldn't, but it can change a lot of people's options when they're going to birth. And that's something that if you don't know what your rights are and your options are in that situation, you can have your choices taken away from you. So therefore, if you're not informed and you can't make that decision to say, actually, no, I disagree with that, I still want to have a home birth just because my BMI is higher, I still want to continue that, you've got the evidence and the information to make a decision that makes you feel happy. Whereas, yes, you can make that decision, yes or no, without that informed decision, but that often leaves you with like a bit of a haze and scope for regret because you won't know what the right things were to do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bias with the information that you get because of the policies that they're governed by, because of the hierarchy within the system, which then means the information you get, again, isn't individualised or isn't evidence-based, and then you are forced to make a decision in that realm when there's much more scope for you to make decisions. And if you don't have that information, you can't. And then a lot of people come away from that birth thinking they were to blame, or I didn't make the decision that was right for me there. I did based on what I knew, but actually you look back and why didn't I find out more? Why didn't I ask questions? Because unfortunately, we have way more choice for birth than we ever realise. I mean, for me personally, there's a lot of things that I've learned since training and since my work that I didn't realise were options for me. And we face so many challenges as new parents, new mums, pregnant folk, because we're expected to go through this journey where a huge hormonal change, huge change in kind of lifestyle because of hormonal changes. So we might become more sedentary or things like that, and that our hormones put us in a whirlwind of thing, just general.
A maelstrom, yeah.
And then we're faced with all this information around pregnancy. We get friends, family, healthcare providers throwing their opinions and their choices down your throat, and you sit there completely overwhelmed with this massive information that you've got to process.
Right.
It's really easy to hide yourself away from it all and kind of go in blind.
Yes, yeah, just sort of put your head in the sand. I just need to not think about this too much. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's going to happen anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's really interesting. I think it's going to be a surprise to a lot of first-time pregnant mothers that a lot of the policies you get in, particularly in hospitals, are not evidence-based. No. But it's not unusual, is it, at all?
Only around 9 to 12% of evidence and policies in hospital settings generally are evidence-based. The rest is just expert opinion.
Yes.
Or
operating convenience.
Or convenience. Yeah. Which for me is staggering, and that's why I'm so passionate about people being informed going into birth. Because if you are just going with the flow, you're going with the flow of nothing. The evidence isn't there to help you. And if what's happening in your birth or your pregnancy doesn't fall within that 9 to 12% of evidence, what's happening in your birth, you're actually opening yourself up to, unfortunately, potential trauma just because it's not set up to support natural birth, physiological birth. And the policies policies in place, particularly in the UK, are things like you can't go over 42 weeks pregnant, or you can't have a home birth if you are high risk. And actually, I mean, I could go on with big babies, small babies, induction, all these sorts of things just come up constantly, when actually they're just policies, and most of them aren't evidence-based, and you don't have to agree to them. The only person that gets to giving consent to birth in any aspect is you. And that's not me saying you ignore advice at all. Right. You're open, but it's exploring that, asking questions, making sure that you know that what you're agreeing to is something that you feel is appropriate for you. And then that is what you are doing. You're making informed choice because you've absorbed all this information, and it can't just be from your healthcare provider. It has to be kind of neutral. It has to be evidence-based. You have to find and take that bias away, because otherwise you are going to be I don't really like the word because it sounds quite scary, but coerced into care that might not actually be necessary because of the language that might be used around those decisions. And I think part of that is because of risk. And we talked about like some of the challenges that we may face, and because we get posed with a risk. And if you think you're risking yourself or your baby, you're going to agree to what that's being suggested. Yeah. You're not going to put yourself at risk. And I understand that. However, that's where it's important. If you're informed, you can say, actually, is that relative risk or is that absolute risk? So what is the percentages of that likelihood happening? Because that can change everything about what you what's you.
A 50% increase in risk sounds incredible, and then if you find out that's from 1 in 1,000 to 2 in 1,000 or 1.5 in 1,000, it doesn't seem so much.
No,
and yet,
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, that's often things are presented as increases in risk without reference to the absolute numbers, aren't they?
Yeah, and it happens all the time. And I think if you said to me, you've got a 2 in 1,000 chance of winning the lottery, I'm putting a ticket on. Whereas if they present it that there's increase the risk of stillbirth because you've got over 42 weeks increases to that, you're going to go, well, I'm not doing that. But actually, again, it's that absolute figures. If I look at those and go, actually, I'm still very safe. I'm still incredibly safe. But if I don't,
and also you know your body and the baby's been in your body, and you can feel when things are okay and not okay, can't you?
Yeah, and your intuition, your instincts play a huge role throughout pregnancy and beyond in parenthood. You'll know when things aren't quite right, and you might need to then push again for things that don't seem. You might feel like you've been told that this isn't happening with your baby, but you know something's not right. That instinct is there, and it's there because we're mothers and we have that hormonal response. And we need to tap back into that. We're kind of evolving into a society where we believe computers and scans and
models, more
than we do ourselves. And I think instinctive birthing is something that it takes practice to do. It's hard to kind of tap into that part of our brain again and trust ourselves.
So I think, if I can summarise that a little bit there. So it's if you assume that the organisation that's providing your care, if you assume that organisation has your best interests at heart and will always make decisions that are best for you, then you could be really missing an opportunity for the birth that will make you feel like you were really driving the decisions, you owned the choices, you knew what those choices were, and you were able to feel that you gave your baby the best chance of coming safely into the world and being connected and bonded to you and getting a great start.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And even when birth needs intervention or becomes less of that kind of physiological process, you still can make informed choices that actually increase the likelihood of things that are more successful in birth and development of the baby. So with a cesarean birth, immediate skin to skin, people don't realise that is actually your right to have. Because that's building the baby's microbiome, that's helping them regulate their temperature, they're regulating their nervous system, digestive system, and that starts immediately. And lots of people are deprived of that because they don't realise that's an option that they've got. And again, if you're going into that without that informed information and to make informed consent, you are being deprived of something that, one, you're entitled to, but two, that's better for you and your baby.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a. Yeah, I just want you to have that powerful experience of birth, that you feel that you, regardless of the outcome, if sometimes it doesn't go to plan, you still feel like you made the right choices. And the way I've experienced it is that when you're informed and supported, you can still have that, and you don't come out of birth with the if only or the regret.
Right.
Because that's what can live really heavily with you moving forward.
Yeah, regret becomes a barrier, doesn't it, to relationships, and that is not what you want. So, talk a bit more about, you mentioned there about support and how that can help you. So you talked about getting yourself informed. What about support and the people around you? What are the things that you would advise pregnant mothers to think about there?
Obviously, I'm going to be quite biased myself and obviously consider doulas, but the first thing is your birth partner, whoever your birth partner is, needs to be informed as well. Sometimes I do have clients that attend hypnobirthing courses on their own, and they're still becoming informed. But if their birth partner isn't informed as well, then they become a bystander in that birth, and then you can feel a complete lack of support and a sense of responsibility throughout that whole birth, which can be quite difficult or emotional. So that support needs to be there. We are, especially, obviously I've worked with clients across the globe, and midwives are incredible and they are there to support you, but unfortunately we don't have as many as we should have for the care that we should be getting. So therefore that support and and feeling safe is often missing.
So you have to fill the gaps with your team, don't you?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, as the person giving birth, you need to think, well, who's going to give that continuous support? And that, for the most part, continuity of care is something that can take your birth and your pregnancy from being something that you feel anxious about to something that you feel absolutely amazing about, regardless of how it happens, because you know that you've had someone on your side and by your side from here all the way through to that postnatal experience. Someone that you can ask questions to or seek support from, learn your tools, learn how to advocate for yourself or have someone to advocate for you, because that birth support is going to help you make those decisions throughout that time as well. But you're not going in on your own. You've got someone to discuss these scenarios with. You've got someone who can bring up information that's going to help you make that choice. As a doula, I see it all the time. Obviously, I attend in births. You see the language that's used, and you see how women in birth and people are made to feel in that, because they're vulnerable. And those that have the support, whether that is a parent, a sibling, a partner, whoever, they come out of that with a lot better experience than somebody who feels completely isolated in that situation. And a midwife can make or break that situation as well. How they support you can.
Absolutely. And it's worth saying, isn't it, that if continuity of care, that constant team throughout your birth journey is really powerful, and we all know that. It's very hard to achieve. In some countries, it takes quite a lot of money to achieve that. And that's why getting your partner engaged is great, your birth partner, also considering a doula or someone who can step into that role. It is worth saying that if you go to a hospital and you meet a midwife who you've never met before, because it's likely that she will be very skilled at her job, she will probably be pretty good at creating that connection and relationship quite quickly. So it's not a lost cause, is it, by any means? But it's about managing the risk, isn't it? And kind of avoiding the situation where you feel unsupported, where you feel that you're not being informed properly, that you're not being allowed to take this to be part of decisions and make decisions, and therefore the fear and the negative cycle of fear hormones, an adrenaline system kicks in, and that can really derail you, can't it? So.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's derailing you, it's usually prolonging that labour. Even just going into hospital can have an impact on the progress of labour, because that change of environment, your hormones, that, oh my gosh, like we're going to go and have a baby because you go to the hospital, even though you're already in labour, that kicks that in. And if you could meet, like say, a midwife who's fantastic, but if she goes on a shift change, that again is another point where you go, yes, I built a brilliant relationship rapport with this midwife, but then I've got a new one that I've got to build that again, and then that can then impact your hormonal response.
Indeed.
Labour. So knowing that, so again, even just knowing that that's something that can happen means that you can kind of safeguard yourself.
Prepare for that.
Prepare for it, protect your space in that environment, because it does make a huge difference. And as you said, continuity of care is really hard to achieve unless, and even in the UK, but pretty much worldwide, unless you're able to financially subsidise that. Doulas are amazing, and I love my job, and it's incredible, but not everyone can afford to hire a doula. But we know that the impact they can have in that feeling safe and that continuity of care and helping you overcome challenges is their role. That's what they are. You are hiring them to do. But everyone should have that opportunity. It shouldn't be something that you should have that naturally, in my opinion. So it's I think if you can go in, even if you don't have the access to that support, if you can learn as much as you can about birth, learn your rights, learn some tips and tools to help you keep calm and to regulate your hormonal response. If you can do all those things and learn to advocate where to find information, then that's going to put you in a better situation going into that birth. And if your partner or somebody can be in that with you is also on the same page, that's going to help you to come out of that experience more positively.
Yeah. So, for example, if your partner and you have practiced techniques for grounding you and getting you back on track and calming everything, the situation, when things have got a bit too exciting, then that's a really valuable tool, isn't it, to have during the labour, when labour goes through those points where things get really quite exciting, and it could go either way. There we go. That's the words. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think if some of there's an acronym that you probably heard called the BRAIN tool, which is something that I think if you forget everything else and going into birth in terms of like how to advocate or what you need to do, if you can remember that, then that's something that as a birth partner you can really try and take responsibility for to support your partner. So that's you. When any questions, decisions need to be made, you sit there and you go, so what are the benefits of this decision on me and my baby? What are the risks of this decision on me and my baby? So you're unpicking those with your provider, and if they can't give you the facts, you ask for a second opinion because you're entitled to do that. Ask them what the alternatives are. So what alternatives are there to what you are suggesting? You're suggesting at this point that I need to have a hormonal drip, so that would help speed labour up, for example. But what alternatives have we got at this point? Could we just sit and wait and observe and allow our body time? And you'll see what options you are given, and you'll realise you have got options. But if you hadn't have asked that question, you would have popped on that hormonal drip because that's what they're suggesting. And again, we talked about instincts. Eyes for instincts. What are your instincts telling you to do? Trust them. You'll know what feels right. If you've got someone telling you that things are okay, but you'll go, no, actually, no, I don't feel right. Baby's not right. You can go on the flip side. It's not always looking at things, delaying what they're suggesting. It could be actually proactively asking for something because you're not feeling like something's
absolutely.
It's taking that control. And then the N stands for nothing. And this is what I really try and kind of strongly discuss with my clients, in the fact that time is one of the biggest things. If you're able to have an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, if you ask for time and you're able to give it, and that you're given that time, you know that the scenario that you're facing isn't as critical as you might have perceived it to be.
At the time, it can seem critical. It isn't always critical. Yeah.
No. So therefore, you can then kind of do some techniques to calm down. So your breathing, some havening or some anchoring, distraction to get you in a calm. So then you're making an informed choice, not being in a state of panic. So you calm yourself down, get your oxytocin flowing, get all your serotonin, positive hormones, and lower that adrenaline. Therefore, you can then make a decision better because you're not making one out of fear. So time is something so asking what happens if we do nothing, can I have some time? That's huge. That can make a massive difference at birth. And if they're not able to have time, you know that it's something you need to act on.
Yes, indeed. And when you have that time, then you can do something different. Yeah. You can draw on the information you gained when you did your research, or you heard through a program you've done, or from a friend about, maybe we're not moving enough, or maybe we need to squat instead of standing, or whatever it is. Making a change, having the time to do something different, relating that to the way you're feeling, because if you've worked on listening and tuning into your feelings and the way your body feels and your baby, then you're in a much better position, aren't you, to think about what's going to work here, what's going to help move us forward. So, yeah, fantastic. That's really good about fear, how that can overcome and overwhelm all of the good intentions and plans. I think that what I'd like to do is to go through the next part, really, which is with the best intentions, the best preparation, the best kind of team that you put together. There are unexpected parts of the journey. Things happen, and you don't always have the experience you wanted. And I think you've talked about how arming yourself with information and doing that preparation work and having those techniques to get you back to a relaxed state and safe state are really, really powerful. It is always possible that you do have a part of the birth journey in which you feel that the level of anxiety overwhelmed all of that. You felt out of control, and that you had a lot of emotions, I think, during that time. Yeah. Which at the time there's no outlet for those because the adrenaline system has kicked in, and there's a kind of heightened speed of events at that point. That can easily happen, can't it? So, can we spend a few minutes talking about when that happens, and you've got your baby, you've got your extended family, but you've got this thing that happened, and you haven't really. It's sort of tucked away. I mean, what in that situation? What's going on there, and what should people think of? What mothers think about if that has happened?
A lot of the time people don't realise that that experience has impacted them so heavily emotionally because, again, how the language that we hear is, well, you're here and baby's here, so like you're safe and that's all that matters.
Yes.
And I hear that from pretty much every client that I've ever worked with, Birth Rewind, is that well, I'm safe, baby's safe, so that should be what matters, and it's not. That's not.
It's so jarring, isn't it? It's so tone deaf.
Absolutely. For me, it's you. When you're giving birth, you are important. How you feel about your birth is so incredibly important. If you're coming away and there is that traumatic response, and every time you think back, you feel like you're transported back to that environment. You feel those kind of that fear response. You shake, or you feel sick, or your heart's pumping. That means that you've not basically processed that fear or those emotions during that experience.
Right.
Which means your memory of your birth is attached to emotion. And if that emotion's negative, every time you think back to that birth, you are having that emotional trigger as well. So it becomes this overwhelming negative experience that you don't want to talk about. You might get triggered by anything, a noise, and it is basically a trauma response that has occurred through that birth, and it's because of our fight or flight response that basically stops us from processing that emotion during that experience. So it's attached to it, and without that process, you just become hypervigilant. So the process of you experiencing your birth and reliving it later is negative constantly. And so many people feel that they should be relieved that their baby's here and they shouldn't have those experiences, so they can either not realise how negative and how traumatising that can be moving forward, because it can have an impact clearly on your mental health, your ability to bond with your baby, your bonding with your partner or your or family members or the children, because you feel inadequate in some way because you are experience this negative response all the time. And it's not a very nice place to be in. And sometimes you move past that.
It sounds dangerous. It sounds more than not nice. It sounds like it could be quite a dangerous place to be.
Yeah,
because it can easily lead to damaged relationships at a time when those are crucial.
Yeah, exactly. You need that support at this time. Postnatally, you're still vulnerable. Your hormones are still out of whack, and you're having to look after this newborn baby. You might have other responsibilities as well in the home, and if this is what's hanging over you continuously, then that can be absolutely catastrophic for your mental health, your relationships, pretty much everything. And there are lots of places out there that you can get support from, but unless you realise that what part of that experience is impacting this response, it's quite difficult to move that. And that's where kind of seeking professional help is really important. It's something that we're not really told about, or it's not important because as a society, again, you've got this healthy baby. What more do you need? In fact, we should be proactively supporting new mothers, new parents in this experience, and signposting them to services and support that actually helps them process it. And that the birth rewind is something that can do. It helps to take away that panic, basically, that you can continuously experience post-birth every time you think about that experience. And it could be something to a healthcare provider or like a midwife or a family member that doesn't seem significant, but to you that is huge because you were in a fight or flight response. So therefore that trigger just causes you to become overwhelmed all the time. And yeah, it's something that I think definitely people need to know that there's access to.
That's very interesting. I asked you a couple of questions. So I take it that, debriefing large events is always good.
Yeah.
And that's general to all, whether it goes well or badly.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is different, isn't it? It's something that where you sense that there was something was very wrong, and you're holding this traumatic experience in, which is going to have outlets in your behaviour and your feelings.
Exactly.
And you need to seek help from someone who's capable of helping you process that.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Absolutely. And my job as someone who's trained in this is to assess whether this person is right for this or whether they need further clinical support, because some traumas are way beyond the remits of what I work, and my job is in our training to kind of assess that and know whether they are suitable candidate for the rewind. Fortunately, I feel quite able to do that, understanding birth the way that I do, and understanding trauma the way that I do. It means that I can do that, and there are lots of amazing practitioners out there, but sometimes you do need more than just some rewind work. But what the rewind does, it does enable you to explore your birth story, tell it without interruption, without judgment, because I think that's the key thing, is that we are judged in every decision that we make, whether that's from our healthcare provider, our families, birth partners, whatever. My job isn't to judge you. My job is to listen and to hear what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and even that's just completely cathartic, just to get that out without being interrupted, or but at least this, or that kind of feeling. That's a weight off most new parents' mind.
And then that's very interesting. Sorry, I was going to say that it is people around you without knowing if this has been the case, without knowing, are just layering on the pain, aren't they?
Yeah, contributing to it.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. That's really interesting. I think I like the phrase birth rewind. I think that's I like that. That's good. And so we talk about this safe place with a skilled person who can help you release, get that out, surface it. And if you can surface something, you can talk about it, then you can manage it, can't you?
Yeah, and the process is it is something that I have been through, not for birth, but for another experience. And it's phenomenal, because what it enables you to do is, bring that emotion to the surface safely, but it allows you to keep the memory of your birth, but you then are basically, it's called 3-step, because you go through 3 times of reliving that situation, but in a safe way. So, and it's used dissociation. So we have double dissociation, and dissociation. So how you are experiencing that event is layered, and then every time you experience it, you rewind that back. So what that's doing is giving you that memory, but stripping the emotion from it. So and you do it through guided meditation. So you're in that deep, relaxed state, which means you'll feel safe. Anytime you feel unsafe, or you feel kind of, we come out of that and we go back into it again if we need to.
Right.
But it allows, it's called, we use neural linguistic programming, so a gentle form of that to release that emotion that's attached to that memory. So at the end you have that memory, you can think about it, but you're not having that overwhelming traumatic response that you've had because you've released it through that technique. And then it finishes with some lovely kind of forward thinking. So we go through what it looks like for you now moving forward. What does that feel like? What does that look like? And people have a huge sense of release and relief, and all of those emotions it can be quite overwhelming in a positive way as well, because for the first time in a while they've kind of gone, this doesn't feel heavy.
Yes, yeah.
I feel that, and unfortunately a lot of time this rewind technique is used to repair relationships as well that people don't realise have been impacted, because there can be that resentment towards a partner. If you feel in that birth experience you weren't supported, then that can build a lot of resentment up, because you're the one that's gone through it and you don't feel like you've had that support during.
Yeah, and I think the message here is that, it's very, very risky to keep carrying that without doing something about it, isn't it? That's what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because it will contaminate everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's really great. We are going to start to wrap up there. That's fascinating about the birth rewind, and everything we talked about today has been so helpful. I really appreciate it. What can people do if they want to learn more about some of the things you've talked about and take other steps with you?
So following me on social media is a really easy, quick way. There's loads of free information on my social sites. So that is Birthhood UK on both Facebook and Instagram. So lots of free resources there available. My website is very detailed as well. So you can head to www.birth-hood.co.uk. And again, all the information's there for what I offer, and there's quite a lot. Fortunately, I work both face-to-face and virtually, so I have worked with people all over the world, which has been
fantastic.
Yeah, it's been brilliant in order to connect with different people, and so you can get that support virtually as well. But there's lots of free resources. If you've got any questions, just contact me. That it's a good way for you to know if I'm the right person to support you as well. Because I think that's always important to know whether you've got that connection, because it's a vulnerable time in your life. You need to feel supported and connected with that person. Absolutely.
That's great. And I think that you are also offering a 10% discount on your hypnobirthing-based hypnobirthing-based antenatal preparation courses, aren't you? Yeah, so fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. I really appreciate it, Leanne. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today, and for I think that the mothers watching can get a lot from what we've talked about. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.